We're talking today with Mike Raudenbush of Rockford, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Now, Mike, can you start us off with some background on yourself? To begin with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Harvey, Illinois on August 5th, 1944.
Okay. Now, did you grow up in that area or did you move around?
We moved around. My mom moved to Philadelphia for a job in '45. We lived in that area for 4 years. My mom was, well, very honestly, my dad took off, and biological dad, they were married, but I don't really consider my dad. I never saw him. And my mom got a divorce, and she met my dad, who adopted me, and they got married, and we came. My dad worked for Railway Express, which was a shipping. They shipped mail, everything, but that was starting to go out back in '49, and he got laid off, and they talked it over and decided they were going to go to Chicago area where my mom was born and I was born, and she grew up there, and see if find a job. On the way there, I had an uncle and his family in Grand Rapids, and we stopped for a 3-day visit. That was in August of 1950. My uncle said to my dad, you know, they're hiring like crazy for jobs right now because Korean War had started, and they were taking healthy young men out. So my dad went out with him for a day and came back for a job, working for a bakery. And from then on, we lived here. Both of my parents now have passed away, but we lived here the rest of the time. So.
All right. Now, were you in the city of Grand Rapids when you were growing up, or were
Yes.
You? Okay.
Yes.
And what high school did you go to?
I went. Well, I wasn't in the city for the whole time growing up. We were first 3 years we were. Then we moved, which is well part of the city now. We moved by not far from the just off Ball Avenue from the Kent County Jail that wasn't there when we first moved over there, but it was a new housing project at that time. My parents got a home, and I went to a very small school, grade school, 5 classrooms. The kindergartners in the 8th grade were the only ones that got their own room. The others were 2 classes. And we were not in any school district. Then we were just outside the city limits.
Okay. So
my parents, we'd have been going to Trinity Methodist Church all the years we lived there, and my parents knew a lot of people whose kids went to East Grand Rapids High School, and I could go anywhere. So they decided I was going to go to East. So I went to East for 2 years, and then we got annexed in the city, and I ended up 2 years at Central High School. So I graduated from Central, '63.
All right. Now, what did you do at that point?
I lettered in football, and I ran track, but I didn't run track in my senior year because I got a job at when downtown Grand Rapids was downtown Grand Rapids, where everybody shopped, you know. and I got a job working in the meat market down there, Basil's Meat Market. So I was working at the meat market. And I don't know what to say after that.
Well, you wind up in the Army at some point. How does
Oh,
that
yeah,
happen?
well, it had to do with the meat market. I had no intentions of going into service. It wasn't even on my mind,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And at that time, there was, except for the Cold War, there wasn't a lot going on. Vietnam was a little thing once in a while in the paper, and I became friends with this one other guy that worked. He had gone to Creston High School and just graduated, and he wanted to go into the Army because he'd been in high school ROTC.
Mm-hmm.
And where Baisley's was, downtown, there was a little, in between us and Sears, was the next door, was a little alley. And if you went out the back of our meat market and down the alley, when you came out, they had the Army recruiting right there. And he was talking to me, and he says, you know, I'm going to go over there and see about enlisting. Could you just come and I'm nervous,
Mm-hmm.
just to see a friend there to help me. So I went, sure. So we went over there, and I just sat down away from him talking to the recruiter, and he's talking to the recruiter about this and that, and I'm just looking at things, and recruiter turns to me and says, and what do you want to enlist in? And I says, nothing. I'm not here to enlist. I'm here just because he asked me to be moral support. And the recruiter says, well, what are you going to do? And like I said, I'd already been accepted at JC, which is now community college.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, I really want to be a minister at that time. And he says, what if I send you some material? Well, he says, do you ever think about going to service and I says, no, I want to be a minister. And he says, well, we have a thing called chaplain's assistant. You could go in the service and be a chaplain's assistant and see if you like it. And one more time I went, no, I'm not going in the service. And he says, what if I just send you some literature on it to get him off my back? I said, fine.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks later, it was summertime, and came home from working, and walked in, and my parents were just sitting there, and my mom says, you didn't tell us you joined the Army. And I went, what? She says, we got a phone call from the Army recruiter saying he's got you all set up. You leave August 15th. He's got the bus ticket down to, at that time, Fort Wayne, Detroit, where they swore the people in and that. And I started to say, I didn't sign anything, I'm not going. And they said, you will not go into service. Well, unfortunately, I was a just turned 19-year-old, and I went, they can't tell me now.
Mm-hmm.
So, like an idiot, I went. And there were a lot of nights there that I went, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
But that's how I ended up in the service.
Okay.
And the whole thing was, being a volunteer, you went through all the physicals and everything, and then the captain came in to swear us in, and he says, all of you that are volunteers at this time have the right to walk out that door. We'll give you a bus ticket home. But you that were drafted, you have to take the oath. And I looked around and I'm thinking, one person walk out, and I'm gone. Well, nobody did, so I ended up in the service.
Did you have any sense of what proportion of them were draftees, or were they not talking about that?
Oh yeah, the draftees, they wanted all the persons that were volunteers to know that they're stupid, that they're volunteering, you know.
So were there a lot of draftees there when you were doing the physical, or just a few of them?
I'd say 2/3 were draftees.
Okay. All right. Now, had you had any expectation, that before you wound up accidentally enlisting, that you might get drafted, or?
No, it wasn't even on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, again, it was just the Cold War.
Right.
I didn't really know that many people that got drafted.
Right. So there was a draft, but it wasn't taking huge numbers of men at that time.
No.
And so you might well not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And anyway, you've been planning on going on to college and so
And
forth.
if you were in college, you were exempt anyway while
Right.
you were in college.
Right.
So.
Okay. So there you are. Now, did the draftees make any effort to find a way to get out of it at that point? Were they trying to fool the recruiters or mess with the physical or anything like that?
Not that I saw. No, they were understanding that they were drafted, and I think that, from what I saw, they must have been pretty patriotic, and they just took their fate.
Right.
But they did talk about just 2 years and I'll be out of it.
Right. Okay. Now, when you went in, I mean, had the recruiter set things up so that you would get a particular variety of training, or did you get options for what kind of training you would get at that point?
Well, he kind of set me up for see if I get in chaplain's assistant, okay? Kinda. And in my 8 weeks of basic, I think it was the 6th week, they called out all those that from our there were 4 companies, I think, of trainees going on at the same time, and we were sent down to be interviewed by the base chaplain. And I walked down there, and there was just a whole bunch of, and I realized, talking to these people, that the next, I'm just a high school graduate. The next person had 2 years of college. The rest were 3 years, graduated, So needless to say that I didn't make the cut.
Did you talk to the chaplain, or did you just turn around and leave?
I talked to him, and hope springs eternal somewhere. There's this little maybe, but I didn't get it. And again, there was only a couple of all these people. There's still only a couple of vacancies.
Right. Okay.
And so I went back, and I was going to go to clerk school because my mom made sure that I took typing in high school and all that, besides my other classes, and I was going to be a clerk, and when you go in the service, you take a battery test, at least back then, a battery test. And it turns out I scored, I couldn't believe it, but I scored pretty high on leadership and all these other things. So I got interviewed for possible going into the 90-day wonder group, and take the 90 days officer candidate school and that. And here I am, 19-year-old, and I I passed the first round of questioning. I passed the second round. I was getting pretty close into the group, and then they sent in the "Who can we scare?" guy. You know, again, I'm just still 19, and these other guys are 21, 22, been around a little bit. And he started talking about all the harassment and that, and and he says, if you want to think about it, you can sign this paper, and at any time you can say, well, I'd like to take a crack at it. But that wasn't really the truth. Once you sign that paper, you pretty much were not in it anymore. So I ended up being sent to Fort Polk, Louisiana, as a heavy weapons, mortars, and 106 recoilless rifle.
Okay, let's back up a little bit
Yeah.
to the arrival of the boot camp. They send you to Fort Knox.
Yeah.
All right. What sort of reception do you get when you get down there?
This was still the old Army, and you took this bus all the way straight to Knox from Detroit. They get you off. It's early in the morning, and to kind of set this up, Bobby, I don't know if you know who Bobby Bear was, a singer. Had several hits back in the early 60s, and one was Detroit City, and he sings, "I want to go home," And just as they had a radio that played music, radio station on the bus. Just as we're driving into Knox, that's what they played. I said, this is some kind of a thing to tell me you shouldn't be here. But they as soon as that bus hit, the training sergeants were out there. Boom! You're here. I'm not being too nice for a training sergeant. I don't understand that, but they put you to your company, and you off you went.
Are they shouting orders at you as you arrive, or?
Oh yeah. Well, the first thing they did once they got you, they marched you right over to the barber, and we had this guy from Detroit on our bus that had long, curly red hair, and that was his pride and joy.
Mm-hmm.
When we got to the barber shop, guess who they took first?
Mm-hmm.
And the barber went, how would you like this? And he goes, well, I'd like just a little here, a little, all gone. And he got up, he looked in the mirror, and he cried. And I went, oh, man. But I kind of knew this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. My uncle, my mom's youngest brother, had served in the Army in Korean War and that. And he said, just know that these things are going to happen. He says, just take it in stride, that they're just trying to break you into, so you take orders and that. So,
right.
But then we went to basic.
Okay. And what did they have you spend most of your time doing in basic? What kind of training were you getting there?
Pretty much marching, close order drill, learning how to use, at that time it was the M1.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of military classes on proper military etiquette, and a lot of PT,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of PT.
And how much emphasis was there on discipline?
A lot.
Okay.
Which brings me to a little story. We were out close, learning close drilling, marching, and I'm out there, and I'm sneaking a peek at the guy ahead of me, you know, trying to make sure I stayed in step, because the first sergeant was leading the drill, and he'd changed directions, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm glancing down, he catches me. And he decides it's a good time to have a little lesson learned for everybody. So he pulls me out and he says, "Soldier," he says, "you're standing there, you're marching, looking at the guy's feet. You can't march and look at the guy's feet. It doesn't work." And he says, "You get behind me, and I'm not giving any orders on, I'm just going to change, and you got to change too." And I made the mistake of keeping up with him. See? And that night, we were up in the barracks, and we had an inspection the next day, and I'm in there, and I got my foot locker, and your underwear has to be rolled just the right way, and I get it all done, and it's looking good. And he comes walking in, and he's usually home, but he comes walking in. It's about 9 at night. He's looking, he gets to mine, he says, "I never seen such looking locker in my life," and took it, and just everything, my clothes, everything just went all over. And he says, "Soldier, redo that locker." And I learned a lesson right then. Never show up a higher ranking person. But it was of course everybody else was, you know, and they learned a lesson too. So
now, aside from that particular incident, how easy or hard was it for you to adjust to life in the Army there?
To me, it was easy. I don't know why.
Well, you were in pretty good shape going in, right?
Oh yeah, because I'd played sports in high school, and not like I am now. Of course, I'm much older, but yeah, we had this run we had to make at the end, and if you didn't pass all your things, you were recycled. In other words, you had to redo the whole,
right.
You know. And we had this guy from New York. He was more than a little slightly overweight, and he tried like crazy, but he was not really going to make a good soldier. He had joined the National Guard there in New York to keep from, you know, having to serve the 2 years. He was a drummer in, I can't think of the name of a popular singer then in his band. And another guy and I on the run, we almost helped carry him to get him under the time, and just got under the time. But I didn't want to see the guy fail.
Yeah.
You know. So, but that kind of stuff. My dad was a pretty strict person, and so I was used to rules, and that, you know, I didn't grow up doing whatever I wanted to do. So really, I didn't have that much bad of a problem.
So now, within your company there, were the soldiers pretty much all white, or did you have some black guys in there?
Oh yeah, we had a mixture. We had a group, two white guys from New York and two colored from New York, and they could all harmonize well, and they did. You know, but they drove me crazy because there was this one song, and something about when you don't let your mama come knocking on my door. It was a song that was popular back then, and I listen to the oldies once in a while on the radio and that, and I say, when that comes on, I said, "Oh no, they're trying to torture me again." But yeah, we pretty much, I don't remember any racial problems in our company. No, I never heard a slur, you know.
So the drill sergeants didn't use them or anything like that?
No, no. Got to remember, Kennedy was in office, and he was pushing civil rights pretty good, so it got pushed pretty good in the service.
Within the military, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had been a little ahead of that game in terms of desegregation anyway, so there had been blacks in regular Army units since the late 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now, you get to the end of basic training. They send you down to Fort Polk. How do you get down there?
Train.
What do you remember about that trip?
That we were not allowed in cars that had the general public. And that's the one thing I remember. Well, you know, I had several guys that I went to basic with, or they were my basic platoon, and they were gone to the same place, so I had people to talk to, and, you know.
About how long did it take, do you think?
I'm saying 2 days. You know, I think one night.
Did you ever get out of the car? I mean, did it stop places, or you think you were in there most of the time?
It stopped in a couple places, let off people, picked up people. No, we weren't allowed off the car.
All right. Now, physically, I mean, what was Fort Polk like?
A lot of people hate Fort Polk. I don't. I had a pretty good time there.
Okay. Well, at this point, this is a little bit before. This is before the big Vietnam buildup. I mean, there was a point where an awful lot of guys.
There was no buildup in Vietnam at that time, except for our advisors.
Right. You know, so a lot of guys who went in after you went through Fort Polk for AIT, and it had all kinds of efforts at Vietnam simulation and stuff going on there. But for you, I mean, what was it about Fort Polk that you liked, or why did you have a good time there?
Well, after AIT, I was sent, like I said, 2 blocks, or like I talked earlier to you, 2 blocks to the assistant instructor on a 106 recoilless rifle, anti-tank weapon. And I got treated like I was regular higher rank because I was a trainer.
So you went from trainee to trainer just overnight.
And a couple of days, it was unbelievable, you know. Though I had one thing a lot of people did, I still had a full KP, you know. But I also had several people from my heavy weapons platoon in AIT that went with me, so I had to build in friendship too. So it was, and I was lucky enough to, our sergeant, barracks sergeant, E6, was from Detroit. And he had only been in the service a couple years, but he was fantastic sports. And he won the base several titles, baseball, football back when they had rivalries with other bases and that. So his rank went, every time they won another championship, he got another stripe, you know. But he took me under his wing, and he explained things to me. He says, Mike, you don't want to spend time just going into Leesville, which is the town right outside of. He says, find a way to get away, get 20, 30, 40, 50 miles away. And when you do that, don't act like some stupid idiot, and don't put down the people because they talk different from you, or they do different things. And I took that into, I believe that. I believe that today. And happened to one of the guys that was in basic and AIT with me. He was a draftee, and he went home and he got his car because he could then, because he was permanent party. And we'd go on the weekends, a place called Ville Platte, Louisiana, about 40 miles from the base. And they had a bar with band and that, and the thing was 19-year-olds could drink down there. And I met a girl there, and he, at the same time, my buddy with the car met the girl's girlfriend, and we'd go up on Saturday night, and the parents, they kind of first, what they decided they liked me, and allowed me to sleep. Him and I sleep on their couch and that, making sure that the daughter was
somewhere else,
which I would have done too as a father. But yeah, we had a good time. I enjoyed my work. I enjoyed teaching, the 106. I enjoyed the live. I loved the live fire we did. The end of training was, the last thing they did is we had a range out. I guess it's called North Fork now, but at the time it was just out. And we'd fire live rounds. And the 106, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's got two different types of rounds. And there are 20, 21, and 23, if I remember right. It's been a long time. But and weight, pounds and weight. And it's got a modified M50 machine gun, so it only fires one time. And it's got a back blast, because you put these charges, and it's got a back blast that can go back about up to 20 feet, depends on what you got. And the guy sits on, the gunner sits on the mount, and he looks through the scope, and then he pushes in, and a machine gun bullet goes out, and it's phosphorus. And if it hits the tank, then he knows he's in, and then he fires the real round. But I had to grab a whole bunch of guys that would, the loaders. We spent time. We'd show them. We'd fire around, show them the back blast, and then they'd get, and they're standing right behind them. You got to go. Don't shoot. Don't fire yet. Pull them off. But
so directly behind the barrel of the gun, just right where the back blast would hit them.
Oh, it'd kill them. It'd kill them in a minute.
Now, do you have any idea how you wound up becoming an instructor out of that? Were you just good with the weapon when you were training on it?
Well, I got good grades on everything, as far as all the training, but I think it was the luck of the draw. In some ways, it really was. It was just kind of luck of the draw.
Now, when you were growing up, had you done any hunting or shooting or things like that, or were you new to guns when you went through the Army?
No. Back in ¡55, at the age of 11, you could go hunting at that time for a hunting license if a parent was with you. Where we lived now, all kinds of buildings and everything else, and condos, and you name it. But at that time, we'd walk down the end of our street, across Plymouth, which was the road that went this way, and it was all woods. You go pheasant hunting. My dad and I went 2 years, and my dad got mad because we never shot any, and we never went hunting again. So, I have nothing against weapons, except that I don't think weapons should be around where little kids are. I have a...
Okay. But you didn't have a lot of experience with them before you went in the Army.
Couple years of hunting with my dad. That was it. You know.
But without much to shoot at.
Well, yeah.
All right.
But you know, we did some target
Okay.
practice. You know, you have to learn to shoot it before you can go out there and try hunting. So we did target practicing in that.
Okay.
But I just had like, you know, I like firing a weapon. I don't like firing at people.
All right. How long did your assignment at Fort Polk last?
Let's see, I graduated week before Christmas, and I went to Berlin in August. So
Okay, so about 8 months or so.
yeah.
Okay. So then did you just, was it normal for them to take people who were assigned to things in the base and then just give them orders to go somewhere else? Or?
Oh yeah, you got, you know, it was Army. Wherever their need is, you know, and I just thought I was blessed getting that time there, and you know, the people I met and that.
Now, had they asked you if there were places you wanted to go, if you had preferences for overseas assignments, or did you, you
Not
just...
back then.
Okay. All right. So basically one day you come in and you have orders to go to Berlin? Or?
Well, I had orders to go to Germany.
Okay.
And I had a 30-day leave, and I had to go to Fort Dix, is where
New Jersey,
back then we were going over by boat, or ship, excuse me. And I just had orders for there, and I got to have my leave and got to Dix, and I got orders for Europe, and when we sailed into Bremerhaven, and they lined us up, and actually I got a group number on the boat day before. These are the people you're going to be with,
right?
You know, and we got off, and some went you name it, in Germany.
There were a lot of bases.
My order said Berlin.
Okay. Now, what kind of boat did you go over on?
We went over on a Liberty ship.
Okay. And was that an easy ride or a rough one? Or?
Oh, it was August. It slept on the deck most of the time.
Okay.
Seriously, it was great going over. However, coming back,
yeah, that'll be something else. All right. But you show up, you get to Bremerhaven, and then you go to Berlin.
Yeah.
All right. Do you remember? Did they fly you out or put you on a train, or how did they get you there?
There wasn't any flying at that time.
Okay.
Train.
All right.
Through East Berlin. Yeah. Which I found very interesting. Of course, they pulled down the shades. They'd come in and they'd check everybody's ID. The East Berlin.
East German.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's their territory.
Right. Yeah. So because you have to cross through East Germany to get to West Berlin. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you hit the border, they stop the train and they come in and they check everything.
Yep.
All right. Okay. And then what kind of assignment did you have when you got to Berlin?
I ended up in a 106 squad in, God, I'm trying to remember the name.
Now, was that when you were with the 1st Armored Division? Was that the parent unit, or
no?
Does that come later?
Berlin Brigade is a unit itself.
Okay. So
It'd be, yeah, it's a unit by itself.
So you were basically an anti-tank guy.
Well, I was that for a while, and then they needed a mortarman, and I was mortar. And then one day I get called by to see the company commander, and he says, I got orders to send you to headquarters and headquarters company for an interview for the Brilliant Brigade Honor Guard. And I went up there and I got accepted, and my job was to guard the Allied Commissariat, which was the old Gestapo headquarters. And they had 3 guards, because you had your French had a unit area offices. You had your British and you had your Americans. We all had, and we had a place set up, cleaned every day, set up every day for the Russians if they decided to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And in there we had a armed John Juan, French, a British MP, and us. And it was 12 on, 24 off.
Now, were you just standing guard, basically? Or?
Well, we had 2 rooms, one on this side of the steps, and big steps. You go up, big oak door. Then you went up another set of steps. Then you came in, and they looked like mirrors, but we could see. They couldn't see us, but we could watch. And then whoever's month it was on the desk would check IDs and that.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and one time I went, we got 3 pistols here. Pistols, I got the Army was anyway their pistol, 1914 was it? Anyway, and that fired a total of 9 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
The British had a pistol, and I think his shot 6 rounds. The French, John had one, and it fired somewhere around 6.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, we're gone, But in the back, they had a full tactical squad of German police, heavily armed. So, but that was good duty.
Now, did you have a lot of high-ranking officers or VIPs going through there?
Oh yeah, we that job of the Commissariat was to control the airways, the land, and the sea, which was the Wannsee, But yeah, we had a lot of diplomats, because that was basically where most of the diplomats were.
Right. Now, did you see anybody that was famous or that you'd heard of at the time?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't there, but I got to meet Nellie Wood.
Okay, that's pretty good.
We were on headquarters grounds, and across the street was the base theater, and all your high-ranking people, and that went. So they had Sex and the Single Girl with her and Tony Curtis and that, and I got to escort her in, which was probably the highlight of my military career. Because I grew up idolizing Nellie Wood, so.
All right. Now, what kind of accommodations do they give you when you're in the Berlin Brigade? You have conventional?
Same. Well, we had rooms. We had 3-man rooms, which is much better than the bays.
And in general, how did the people in West Berlin treat the American soldiers?
Excellent. I never ever had a problem. I had the only funny thing was I never met a German guy that fought in World War II that fought against the Allies, except they all fought the Russians.
Right. Well, an awful lot of them did.
Yeah, I know, but I always thought it was funny. There had been one.
Right.
But we also, on holidays, we took over guarding the Allied commissar would be closed, so I would guard the headquarters there, you know, and I saw a lot of high-ranking generals in my time.
Okay. Now, did you ever go into East Berlin itself?
Yes.
Okay. What was that like?
Night and day. Night and day. You had to get a security clearance to do it, but that was easy because I was doing security stuff, you know. So you go in and they check at the border, and the Germans made sure, the East Germans made sure that you didn't have any. You had to buy their or exchange for their marks and that, and they checked you all out, and then you go in, and you had to go in uniform, and there was always somebody right close to you, you know, because they didn't want their citizens to be talking to you. But I went twice, and that was more than my fill.
Right. Yeah. What condition was East Berlin in physically? How did it compare to West Berlin?
Again, night day. They were still had ruins that they hadn't cleaned up, and you know, and we were about a new city. What worried me was between us, and we had the Allies. We had 3 tank companies, 1 American, 1 French, and 1 British. They had 30 tank divisions between us and West Germany. We were given 3 minutes to live if they decided to attack us. And one night, our barracks were kind of like this. And in the middle, we had a track and a football field. They dropped a dud mortar round right in the middle of that field one night, and diplomatically apologized, but they were sending a message that we got you. But luckily, nothing ever happened.
Right. Now, how long did you spend in Berlin?
18 months.
Okay. And then was it sort of at a normal length for a stay at that time, as far as you can tell? I mean, were guys rotating in and out at about that pace?
Most were.
Okay. Now, when did you leave Berlin then?
I left. Oh, geez. I left 2 days. The 26th, 27th of February.
Okay.
But I didn't get on the USS Patch until the first day of March.
Okay, and of what year?
60.
So was it 6 now, or 5, or?
66.
Okay. 66, okay. All right, now, well, the USS Patch, was that a naval ship or another troop transport, or?
Another old Liberty ship.
Okay. Now, what was that trip like?
Awful. Again, I was on the last floor, or the first floor, which way they count, a deck, and right at the front of the ship, and going through the North Atlantic at that time of year was awful. I didn't eat for like 3 days. You'd have to climb up all these steps to get, and of course waves were coming over, so they had ropes, and you had to hold on to the rope to get, and I'd get to the mess hall, and I'd smell it, and not that what's wrong with the mess, it was just that I was so seasick that I get there and I can't eat. Back I go. So I lost a few pounds on the way back.
How long did the trip take?
13 days.
Okay. And was it stormy the whole time, or just rough seas the whole time?
Yeah, up until we got close to New York, the old Brooklyn Naval Yard.
All right. And then from there, did you get to go home for a while?
Yeah, I got 30 days.
Okay. And then what's your next assignment after that?
Fort Hood, Texas.
Okay. And then what unit was based down there? Who did you join?
I don't remember the name of the unit right now. I got it in my paperwork there, but it was they were just starting go back to training a whole companies for, it was a training unit, for sending over to Vietnam all together, one unit. And I got there, and because I could type and that, I was company commander, driver, helping, part-time clerk, you know, that kind of stuff. Every once in a while, I actually gave a training thing to the recruits on Molotov cocktails, how to do that if you had to, you know. But I had a good time that time.
Okay, because you did fairly well there while you were at Fort Hood, right? I mean, you got special recognition. And
I was there a little over a month, and I got called in the company commander's office, and the first sergeant was there, and they said that my platoon sergeant had put me up for company soldier of the quarter, and I said, okay, what's that? Seriously? I didn't know. And they said, well, all 4 platoons put up their candidate, and we select one as the best soldier for that quarter in our company. And I went, okay. So I says, well, what kind of questions do you ask? And he says, all military. Could be weapons, it could be etiquette, documents, anything, what's going on in the news about the military. So I went, okay. And one day I was just a couple of days before we had the interviews, I was walking by not trying to listen, but we didn't have air conditioning, so they had the window up, and the first sergeant and the company commander were talking about what was coming up. And company commander asked first sergeant if he's got any real tough ones, and he says, I always ask the same one. I always ask, what Army document is A2? And the company commander went, never heard of it. And he says, that's because nobody ever looks. It's their military ID. And I went, oh, okay. And of course he asked that, and I came up with the answer, and I think that got me right there, because he kind of looked at me like nobody's ever answered that before. But so I was told that I got 2 weeks for the battalion.
Battalion next, yeah.
So he said, but you have a partner now because the NCO of the quarter for a company that they select two, and we studied together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he was really sharp, and I hope I was pretty helpful to him too. But we both went up, and guess what? We both made it. So now we went to battalion.
To brigade or
brigade. I'm getting these things mixed up anymore. But anyway, and I made it again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so far I'm going. I get a little thing in the daily orders things and that saying that, but what am I getting?
Mm-hmm.
Not anything I see, but I went up then for
Well, division's next
division.
level, right?
Yeah, and I'll be darned if I didn't get that one too. So now I'm division soldier of the quarter, and I at least got in the Colleen paper. I got a article and that, and I finally got a $25 gift or
bonus?
Bond.
Bond, okay.
Yeah, which is only $12.50.
Right.
But I did get a chance to become the brigade commander driver, and that was a good duty because wherever he went, whatever he did, he was a full bird colonel. I got to go along. If he had a meeting with the luncheon, I got to sit and eat what everybody else, you know. It was a good job. But it also led me into Vietnam, so.
Yeah, so what's the connection there?
I got close to my ETS, you know, end time service, and I had to see the recruiter. Well, I saw the recruiter, and the recruiter was trying to get me to, and I went, no, I'm not. He says, you know, how you like your job, knowing how I like my job. And he also knew that I was just dating a girl not far from there. And he says, you ever think about extending for a year? You know, you can keep, the colonel likes you and that, so you got your job, and you can see your girl, and, you know. And I went, I don't think so, but I thought, you know, next thing you know, I'm thinking, well, and he says, and guaranteed in writing, that you will stay here. And I went and talked to the sergeant major, and he's in the colonel, and the colonel swore me in. I took an extra year, and things are going good. And one day I had a friend that had a 56 not Mustang, T-Bird,
right,
that I had always wanted to have as a kid growing up. And he got orders for Nam, and he was talking to me, and he says, Mike, I don't think I'm coming back, and I know you like my car, and I want somebody to have it that will enjoy it. And we talked over what it would cost me, and I needed 200 more, so I was asked. I went to see a bank loan officer, and he told me, he says, you know, you get this money today if this is right. You get calls, personnel gets off and says, can't give it to you. And I go, why? And he says, you're going to Vietnam. And I went, no, I'm not. He says, yes, you are. And I said, it's got to be a mistake. He says, he told me, he says, if you can clear it up, and if it's today, you can come back and you get your money. But I have to have proof. So I go into the orderly room and brigade orderly room, and the sergeant major's there, and he looks up and says, what's up, Mike? And I told him, I says, got a problem. I says, I went to get this loan, and loan officer called up personnel and said, I'm going to Vietnam. First sergeant says, that's got to be a mistake. not first sergeant major,
Mhm.
and he gets on the phone. When he gets off, he looks up and he says, "Raudenbush, you're going to Vietnam." And I was very lucky that he was a tolerant man, because to a higher ranking personnel, I blew my stack, and he just kind of sat there, let me calm down. He says, "Son, this is the Army, and no matter what you sign, if they need you someplace because of your MOS,
Mhm.
you're gone." So I went.
All right. Now, at this point in time, what did you know about what was going on over in Vietnam?
I knew fairly a lot. Because I'm a paper reader, and to this day, I'm a paper reader. I read front to back of newspapers. My mom got me in that habit when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in Berlin reading when the president of, or whatever his name, title was killed.
Yeah, President Diem, yeah.
Yeah. I remember reading that, but it didn't mean anything to me,
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, most Stars and Stripes, which was the military paper, at that time, of course, then I kind of started following it. I knew that it was where the French and Dien Phu got massacred, and that, so, but I never thought I'd go, but you couldn't, after a while, you couldn't help. It was in the news, it was all over, so.
Yeah. Okay. So when do you get, now, before you go to Vietnam, do you get a leave, or what happens
30-day leave.
Okay.
And something that surprised me, my parents said, "If you want to go to Canada, we'll understand."
Mm-hmm.
And I went, I can't do that. I raised my hand and said, "Or wherever the United States military needs you the most." And I says, that's what's going to, that shocked me, because I never thought they would do that.
All right. Now, physically, then, how do they get you out to Vietnam?
I flew.
Okay.
When I finished my leave, I took a plane to Oakland, and they had a bus at the airport that would pick up any that are going to Oakland Army base. And I got there, and I wasn't supposed to go for 4 or 5 days. So I was going to go spend a few evenings enjoying the local culture, and they had their formation, and I was put into quarantine. The quarantine was all those going on the next day to Vietnam was put this and locked, and that's how it was. That they locked the doors so people couldn't desert during the night. And the next day, we got on a bus, went to the plane, which was the United States rented regular planes.
Just a regular civilian aircraft.
Yeah,
then.
with the stewardess and all, And we flew to Hawaii first, Hawaii, Guam, Okinawa, and then into Saigon.
Okay. Now, what was the mood like on the plane going over?
It was the first, till we got the last one and we knew we were coming into the next landing would be Vietnam. it was joking, you know, the normal Army people stuff, you know. Card playing, just the normal stuff. But when they came over the loudspeakers, the captain says, "We have now entered into the flight pattern Republic of Vietnam." It changed, yeah. And I'm sitting at a window seat, and I see illumination flares, you know, and it seemed like all the time. It just seemed, but probably wasn't. But I'm thinking, what's going on down there? There's fighting down. Somebody, you know. Then we landed at 3 a.m, and they opened the plane door, and this was in Tonsanut, and they had from the plane to the building where we would be brought to was lined with APCs with machine guns and guys in flak jackets, and in between these were more guys in flak jackets with heavy weapons, and they said, "Run." And I went, "Oh, darn." A little stronger word than that, but that was a welcome to Vietnam.
Okay. Now, what did they do with you then? You ran off the
Okay,
tarmac?
we got into the terminal, and they started calling names and putting us in buses, and we went to I used to know Camp Alpha, which was where they processed you. So I got Camp Alpha, and lucky me, I pulled guard duty, front one of the gates, no weapon, not even knowing who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. But then next day, we went through the assignments, and I got 1st Infantry Division, and that's all I knew at that time. And then they sent me to the group that was going to 1st Infantry Division, loaded on a truck, and they drove us to Long Bend, which was the headquarters at the time for the 1st Infantry.
Okay, so the divisional headquarters is based there.
Yeah.
All right.
And we got there, and it was just getting lunchtime. They said, "Okay, there's a chow hall. Go in and get your lunch. You know, get lunch and stay in there, and we'll come and get you." And we just walked in, and all of a sudden I heard this bing, bing, and I looked, and everybody's dropping to the floor. They're taking shots outside of outside of Long Bend. That's when you knew forever it was a real thing, you know. Because I'm standing there, and everybody else is, and I went, "Oh." You know, then I was down. After a few minutes, they got up, and I guess this was kind of a daily thing. I don't know. But, you know, it was a welcoming. Then they put us on a truck, those that were going to Phuc Vinh, which is where I had the next day we got on a truck. We got weapons, no bullets. And there we go down, and all of us are just thinking, if they attack us, what are we going to do? Bang, bang, you're dead?
Now, was you just on one truck, or was there a convoy? Or?
No, this was, we might have had one Jeep with .60 mounted on it behind us, because we didn't have any weapons.
Right.
None. Well, bullets.
Right.
Because I understand that later when I thought about it, because we'd be taking pot shots at everything, anything that moved. But we got to Fort Van. The company was out. We got put in our companies, our platoons, not companies, and I got called up, and they says the lieutenant that was, staying back as the officer, said, "I see you can type." And I went, "Yeah." He says, "Good. We need a new clerk. Ours is getting ready to rotate. Get your stuff and come on up." I get back down there, and I wasn't even, and I'm going, "Hey guys, enjoy yourself." I'm going up and be company clerk, and down comes the company clerk saying, "Who's Raudenbush?" I said, "I am." And he said, "The company commander, well, the acting company commander, wanted to see you." So I went back up there, and he says, "You're not going to be the clerk. You're a mortarman, and we need you." So not only didn't I get that, but they just had a couple wounded mortarmen. So there's a 3-day jungle school you got to go through there, or at that time. And I got to go right then.
Right.
Pack your stuff, and the rest of the guys, we're not going for another few weeks.
Now, what was the jungle school like?
It was 3 days of trying to learn how to go through, and one night where you go out and set up a perimeter and do the 2-men foxhole. The two are 1 hour on, 1 hour off all night.
Did they teach you about booby traps and things like that?
Oh yeah, you get a fast thing on everything. That one night where we were out, I didn't sleep. I take my hour on, or off, but I couldn't sleep.
Now, by this time, you have weapons and live ammunition and all of that kind of thing. You've got your full kit now, or?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got the 16, and that was really just coming in then. 16, and then went back, and they buy a free. We had a little EM club, which was a hooch with beer. You had to be an E5 or above to get hard liquor. But the group that I was with at the jungle school, we did well for the beer. We had a good time, and then the company, I got sent out on a chopper, which was interesting because I had first ride I had in the chopper. I got the love-hate relationship with that. Loved it when it came in and hated it when it went out. But we went. I got in. They flew us and dropped us off with a hot meal But our division was good. If they could fly on a hot meal, they did.
Okay. Now, what company were you assigned to?
B. First of 26th Infantry, 1st Infantry Division.
All right. And you were a mortarman in the company? Was
yes.
Now, was there a sort of were there mortars attached to platoons, or does the company have a mortar section, or how does that work?
The company has a mortar section.
All right.
They can be at times. It all depends on, again, what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could be with a platoon, or you could be. Most of the time, we were the right in the middle of the company when we dug in that for the night or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
All right, so you'd be somewhere around where the company CP was, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what kind of reception did you get? You arrive, the helicopter brings you into the company. What do they do with you once you get there?
I was one of the older guys. Took me under his wing. I don't know, he decided to like me or whatever, but he took me under his wing and, showed me the right things to do, the wrong things to do, how to make a covering from the sun if you're going to be in a place for several days,
Mm-hmm.
So you don't fry. But we had a very close company,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. I had friends in all the rifle platoons, and that was still is for those of us that are. We have a reunion every year.
Right. Now, what was the company doing at the time you joined it? Were they just?
They were in a perimeter,
Mm-hmm.
for I think they were there 3 days. And honestly, I'm not sure what I'm just trying to,
Mm-hmm.
What their exact mission was there, because of whatever it was finishing up. It
Mm-hmm.
was.
Okay.
We did, but Charlie was nice. He kind of first night sent in one mortar round just to welcome me there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very nice of him. But yeah, I was lucky. I got accepted pretty much right away.
Okay, so they take you in, and they're looking after you to some extent. You're not just
Yeah.
left to your own devices.
Which taught me, and I did it to others as they came in.
Well, it is how the rotation system was supposed to work. It doesn't always in all situations, but for you, it worked the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, but still, it's hard. I don't, not knowing the people and that, but our company was, like I said, they looked after each other.
Okay.
I'm sure all companies did, or most anyway.
Oh. All right. Now, so you're out in the field and then do you go back into a larger base camp for
We
the
got back
perimeter?
to Fugvin.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then what happens from there?
You clean your weapons. You get a shower, which is 55-gallon drums of cold water, and you get 3 people for each shower head. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And you take turns running soap up, and soap up out, get wet, soap up out, and then your turn, because
Mm-hmm.
water was precious. And they had a really good meal for coming back in.
Mm-hmm. And then how long would you stay in?
It wasn't long.
Okay.
It wasn't long. It was, well, they had lost some guys the day before I got there,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a memorial service for them. And you don't have to know somebody to be deeply affected,
Mm-hmm.
and cleaned up weapons and got ready to go out again.
Now, when you go out again, do you go out in helicopters or on foot or in trucks or?
We went out on a battalion move. That's the first full thing I went to. Yeah.
Okay.
I was there on the landing pad there for the helicopters. And you got, we're B company, you had C company over here and A company, and I'm just kind of standing there, and all of a sudden I get a pat, and it was a guy that I served in Berlin with.
Mm-hmm.
He had volunteered for Vietnam, and named Samuelson. He's from Michigan, and he went, "What the hell are you doing here?"
Mm-hmm.
He says, "I thought you were out of the service." And I said, "You don't even want to know."
Mm-hmm.
But it was nice to see somebody you knew, and that. Unfortunately, on Thanksgiving Day, we were out in another full battalion, and we'd set up perimeter, and it was C, B, A, and kind of this way.
Mm-hmm.
We were the whatever out front,
Mm-hmm.
and then here, and I know because I was there because our mortar platoon sergeant had his wife left him and left his kids, so he got emergency leave to go back. So I was there and kind of in his place,
Mm-hmm.
and going over where everybody was, and I know they pounded that, and everybody said, "This is where, these coordinates," and we send out what was ambush patrols, kind of guard our flanks and
Right.
that. And there was this lieutenant from C Company, and he was sent there by the company commander because he was going to lead the ambush. And they're down, and the company, our battalion commander says, "No, everybody got it. Where everybody is."
Mm-hmm.
"Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir." Right at dusk, and we just set up our trip flares and our claymores for the night. Our trip flare goes off. Of course, somebody blew the claymore,
Mm-hmm.
which you're supposed to, and all of a sudden we hear, We're Americans. We're Americans. Don't stop shooting. We're Americans." The lieutenant had put that right in the middle of our company.
Oh.
He was had the ambush set up for the middle of our company, and Samuelson lost his eye. Bullet
Mm-hmm.
got his eye.
So that was friendly fire, in effect.
Yeah. Of course, I shouldn't say. Maybe I don't know if I want this on because he was he got a brown star and Purple Heart, and they said it was enemy fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's almost by way of apology. It's almost an apology.
It was an apology. It was.
So was the lieutenant inexperienced, or
Huh?
do you think the lieutenant was a new guy, or someone who didn't know what he was doing, or?
I don't think he was paying attention.
Mm. All right.
I just don't think he had his mind on that.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been who knows where, but you've got to have your mind on something that important when you're doing a full battalion meeting.
Okay. Can you describe a little bit what happens when the battalion goes out as a unit? What goes on? You load up in the helicopters or whatever, and then what?
And you go out and you start landing, and depends on what you're going to do. You can be the helicopters for A company could be 200 meters that way, and you're in the middle, or it could be you're full, but companies are still together, you know, and you just then they always have their meetings, which is good. You know, everybody knows where everybody else is doing, and you go about making your foxhole and your mortar pits and loading up the ammo pit behind the mortars.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you normally stay within a perimeter with the mortars, or would you go out in the field and out with
I've done both.
Okay.
I've done with the mortars, and if they don't use mine, I've gone out as a trying to think of the word, as the guy that would call in the mortars.
So a forward observer?
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was on the tip of my tongue, and it just would not come out, but I've gone out that way too.
Okay. When you had that duty, would you have a radio, or did you call in with somebody else?
I had my own radio.
Okay. All right. Now, what kind of terrain were you in? What was the country like that you were operating in at that time?
Well, actually, it was one of two things. It was dense second growth forest, or it was rice paddies.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of rice paddies, lots of dense forest.
Now, when you were going through the forests, did you stay on trails, or did you cut your own, or what?
We tried to do our own, because if you follow a path that's already there,
mm-hmm.
too many bad things can happen. Claymores, what was the mine they had? Bouncing Betty.
Mm-hmm.
You step on it, boom. So we tried to do our own.
Mm-hmm. Now, with the paddies, would you just slog across the paddies, or use the dikes, or?
Depends. We've done both.
Mm-hmm.
Walked in some excrements.
Yep.
But depended on what was going on or how you were trying to get somewhere. If you think you got NVA around, you're not going to walk on top of those, because
you're a good target.
Yeah. But I think I probably saw about every terrain in that area.
Okay. Now, how much enemy activity was there at the time? Were you making a lot of contact, or?
Sometimes. A lot of times, they're skip out before we get there.
Mm-hmm.
As it turns out, from reading history and everything else, they had a tunnel system that we had no idea. We were walking right on top of
mm-hmm.
them, you know, thinking that these little holes that our guys would go down into, tunnel rats would go down. There's brave men,
mm-hmm.
you know, but we're just decoys, a lot of them. But yeah, we went pretty much anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were ultimately involved in some of the larger operations in the field. There was one called Cedar Falls, and then Junction 1 and 2.
Cedar Falls was working when I got there,
mm-hmm.
and then Junction City 1 and 2. Junction.
Yeah. What, as far as you can tell, what was the purpose of those operations?
Search and destroy. You know, all of our, as far as I can see, that's what our whole thing was. Go out and hope that they attack us so we could destroy them.
Okay. And how often would that happen? I mean, do these operations have a certain amount of success as far as you can tell?
Somewhat, you know. Obviously not enough,
mm-hmm.
you know, but they knew who we were. I mean, we stood out. We didn't know who they were. You know, we go through a village in the morning and give sea rations and candies to the kids and that, and everybody, oh, number one, and come back and they blow claymores at you. Mm-hmm. You know, their own ones. So it's like you didn't know who was what.
Now, the NVA, though, would normally fight in uniform, and
oh no.
or would they also wear civilian clothes? Because there was the NVA and the Viet Cong, but were they interchangeable in your experience, or were they both active? Or
the one big battle I had with the NVA was at Apgu, which was the First Infantry Division's biggest battle of the war. They were uniform. Mm-hmm. The rest of the time, I don't know if they were NVA or not in uniform. You're not NVA or the Viet Cong, because they wouldn't be in uniform. Mm-hmm. So, I probably both. I probably saw them both.
All right. Now, would you actually see much of the enemy, or would you just get fired on from somewhere?
A lot of hit and run.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were camping out at night and so forth, would the perimeters get hit by these mortars or snipers or sappers?
Very seldom.
Okay.
Very seldom. I can only remember mortars coming in maybe four times on us as at night. Of course, I wasn't there for the second day of Apgu, but they were coming in hot and heavy.
Okay. Now, would you get sniper fire?
Huh?
Was sniper fire more common?
Yeah. If they fired mortars, there was only one or two, and then they were gone.
Okay. Now, if your company made contact or whatever, and you were with the mortars, then would they call in support from you, or how did that work?
Oh yeah, we charted every inch of where the guys would go, you know, and we always had one guy out there for the mortar platoon to do the coordinates.
Right.
And yeah, you have to, or you'd be killing your own guys left and right.
And you guys, you'd have the quickest response time, wouldn't you? You could get the call and do something right away, as opposed to calling in for artillery from somewhere else, or.
All depends. If we're going into some place, we call the artillery because we're just setting up. You know, but the artillery and bombers is what saved that goo. So we're kind of the backup to the artillery, I would have to really say.
Okay.
Because they can do much more damage.
And were you firing 81 millimeter mortars?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so it's still much smaller than a 105 howitzer or something else.
The four deuces are so big, and you couldn't carry them out. No.
Yeah, those were.
You have to be by some kind of transportation set up. Yeah, it was all 81s.
Okay. Now, did you have these operations you conducted? Would you have any kind of mechanized support, APCs or tanks or things like that?
We had a couple times. Yeah, we depended on where we were and if they could be there. Number one, and we had the artillery once, and we got hit, and they had the beehive rounds. Took out everything, trees, the whole bit. They fired those, and it just didn't last long. The battle didn't last long. But then I dreamed about that too. People getting sliced up with those. Of course, that's saving our lives, so it's a two-way street, you know. But most of the time, we were on we had we always had bird dog, and this guy that flew in a Piper Cub, and had more guts than anybody I know, I think, because that's all wood and could be shot down easily.
Now, was he flying low, looking for targets, or?
Yeah, looking for, you know, call in the artillery or whatever.
And did you get helicopter gunship support too? Was that part of it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
And the what was the name of the Gatling gun? They had the plane Dragon or something Dragon.
Yeah, Puff the Magic Dragon was one label I heard for that. Yeah.
We had that one night. Oh, the
Gatling gun.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of the bullet. The one that has the red.
The tracer.
Yeah, that one every 5. It looked like they were just hailing nothing but tracers. Oh man, that tore up.
Right. Now, how long basically did you spend in the field before you got hurt?
Seven months.
Okay. Over the course of that time, how much turnover was there in your company?
The first month, a lot, because all the replacements were coming in. After that, not much.
Did you take many casualties in Cedar Falls or Junction City, or was that fairly light?
We took some casualties, but not a great amount of casualties.
So you spent a lot of those 7 months with pretty much the same group of guys, or there was a fair number of them that you were there with together?
Yes.
All right. What did you think of your commanders, the sergeants, lieutenants, whatever you had to work with?
All but one, the lieutenant, all but one, great. You know, our company commander was Jowan, who became head of NATO. Our battalion commander was Haig. Hay was our Hay. Then Lincoln was our. We had good.
You had good officers. All right.
Some of the younger officers, not so much. But, had one that when I was down at Fort, or Soldier of the Quarter.
Okay, Fort Hood, yeah.
Hood. Got too many things going through my mind. But this ROTC second lieutenant comes in he just graduated from Notre Dame, and little guy, but thought he knew everything. And he was the company commander one time. we was going on a march, you know, the whole company, and he went over to the lieutenant and went, you know, that entrenching tool, you're going to have to use it to make a trench so the handle won't hit the ground. But he ended up in my company over in Vietnam, and you couldn't tell him anything or advise him. And we hit a Viet Cong village, and of course they were gone. And right in the middle was a big clay pot, huge. And right in there was GI equipment. And he says, Raudenbush, take that stuff out of there. And I said, no, sir. He says, that's an order. I said, no, sir. Not till we know that it doesn't have a booby trap. So I got a rock and that, and we got and he's still telling me, you don't have to do this. And I threw the rock and it cracked the clay.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a cylinder, it would explode it, popped and exploded if we just reached in there and got it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I did report that to the company commander. But it was too, when it's obvious,
mm-hmm.
when it's the centerpiece of
yeah.
everything, it you know. But that's the only officer that I never could warm up to.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, did you spend pretty much all your time in Vietnam either on the field or in base camps, or did you go anywhere else? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And how much contact did you have with the Vietnamese themselves, either civilian or military?
Well, except for those that we hired to do things around the base,
mm-hmm.
and the local village of Phuc Vinh. Not a great deal because we're on the move all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Of course, when you go through, like I said, we carry candy with us and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We give to the kids, and that when we went through a village.
Okay. And what kind of impression did you form of the Vietnamese at the time? You just couldn't be sure who to trust, or did it go farther than that?
Yeah, but I also thought, you know, most of these people aren't on one side or another. All they want to do is do their grow their rice, or their wear buffalo or
mm-hmm.
whatever, and just like anybody else be on. I don't, to this day, I don't have anything against the Vietnamese people.
And did you ever see much of the Vietnamese military or police forces or things like that?
We had an interpreter with us,
mm-hmm.
Vietnamese, great guy, great guy. One day, we'd been out in the field and we came back, and we were going to get hot chow in the mess hall, and he was right in front of me, and all of a sudden he dropped his with, you know, where they put the food in tray, and
mm-hmm.
jumped over and just started beating this guy. Turns out he knew this was a VC.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, great guy, except that he wanted me one time to, one of their delicacy is take a unhatched egg, boil it, put a little hole and suck it out and eat the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
He kept wanting me to have one. No, sir, I don't think so. Thank you anyway.
Have to draw the line somewhere. All right. How would you characterize morale in your company while you were with it?
Pretty good. Pretty good. We were fairly close company,
mm-hmm.
you know, and you can't spend a lot of, well, you can, I guess. But, and the war hadn't got to a point that it did in the late 69, 70,
mm-hmm.
and that, where people, we still had a lot of volunteers,
mm-hmm.
you know. And one for all and all for one,
mm-hmm.
you know. Don't leave your buddy behind.
All right. And what kind of ethnic mix did you have in the company?
We had everything.
Mm-hmm.
We had Hispanics, we had colored, we had Indians.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, you know, Caucasians. I'm sure
mm-hmm.
I'm missing a couple, but it was a mixture.
Okay. And how did they work together?
As far as I saw, good. I never saw any kind of racial or any remark,
mm-hmm.
you know, about racial. And I've seen people risk their lives for other people that
Right.
weren't the same ethnic group, and
Mhm.
that, you know, our medic was colored and from Detroit.
Mhm.
I've been trying to find him ever since, and he just, when he got out, he just disappeared from the radar.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And at this stage, were there anybody using drugs or things like that on the base camps?
One person I knew.
Mm-hmm.
One person I knew, and I had to do an ammo count. It was on our platoon one time, and he had a total of 3 bullets. And I had to. I reported him. They took him out of the field.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up base camp doing guard duty there,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought I still got the same problem, probably, but
Yeah, but maybe less dangerous there than
it
with
would
you
be
in the field.
because we didn't get too many problems there at base camp.
Mhm.
So, because I think because of all the helicopters we had there could be with their machine guns up
Mhm.
and firing real soon. But yeah, that's the only one that I personally saw.
Mm-hmm. But basically, as far as you're concerned, I mean, your unit was a pretty effective one. It could do its job well.
I think our unit was one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
I think our battalion was one of the best.
Yeah. And let's see, tell me a little bit about APGU, because that's sort of your last day. I mean, what happened then?
Okay, we had been guarding a bridge that had been blown up by the VC and
Mhm.
had to be replaced. And we got there last of February, beginning of March, and I had R&R coming up, and we called this the Dust Bowl because it was pretty much dust. And every time they'd ship out a hot meal to you, and the helicopter would take off, you'd be like this because it would be all over your meal.
Mhm.
But we spent almost a month there, and probably a month. And I'd gone on R&R, and I came back, and we had one more week, and then we had a 3 battalion move, and I never saw as many helicopters at one time
Mhm.
when I was over there. And that's when we went into landed at APGU. And excuse me, the thing that got me right away was number of helicopters.
Mhm.
And we're being told that this is nothing, we're just going to be out for a few more days, and we're going back to base camp because we've been out for over a month. And we only had one shot at us. One shot, which is nothing. It's
Mhm.
it's VC, oh, bang, get the
Mhm.
hell out of here, I'm the only one. You know, and digging in, most of it laterite, where we were, where you dig in, you got stones, you got
Mhm.
everything else. It's hard digging in your foxhole. This was a dream. Boom,
Mhm.
boom, boom. And that night, the first night, which had been the 30th, we didn't have any except for that one shot. And next morning, get up, and the company recon platoon was going to do a search, their usual recon. And one of my buddies was probably one of my best friends at that time there, was in that group. He was a radar operator for the lieutenant, you know.
Platoon leader? Or?
Yeah. And they went by, and he made a comment to me that this was on the 31st, that some people are lucky. And I says, no, some people have brains. They know not what to get into.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes on by, and it wasn't. See, take this rug here, and it's almost a box.
Mm-hmm.
Trees all over here, landing here, and we're here. And they get in, I'm watching them, and they get into the tree line, and all hell breaks loose.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got the radio for the mortars, and I'm hearing my buddy, Lieutenant's been hit, I've been hit, we need help, we're under heavy attack. You know, he didn't make it, he passed away
Mm-hmm.
there. And they started sending in a whole platoon. Of course, I still got to stay there
Mm-hmm.
with the gun. And what happened is we only had one gun up at that time, and then because they didn't think we needed it, the other one, and so my platoon sergeant Dave, he says, go help bring in the wounded.
Mm-hmm.
So you go over. Meanwhile, they've been ready for us for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty well. They got snipers in all the trees, so no matter where you went, and that's where I got hit. I got hit out trying to bring back a wounded. And
Now, was that the first time you went out, or had you gone and brought someone back and gone
it's my
back?
third time out.
Okay. Because now, is this the action that got you the Bronze Star citation?
Yes.
Okay. So you're going in under enemy fire and pulling guys out, and you keep doing it, and you get hit in the process. All right. Where were you hit, or how badly were you hurt?
Actually, right there,
Mm-hmm.
and it did a good job on my artery,
Mm-hmm.
and I got the last rites on the field. Though I'm a Methodist, but our
Mm-hmm.
chaplain was Catholic, and I didn't know it because I was under morphine.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of came to for a minute, and he's asking me if I want to be forgiven for my sins, and of course, I'm thinking, what the heck is he asking a question like that
Mm-hmm.
for now? But then when I was at the hospital, the 96th, I think it was 96th medevac in Saigon, and because I lost so much blood, and that they had rushed me, I was one of the first to get operated on.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple days later, when I was done with the effects of my surgery and
Mm-hmm.
everything, I was talking to the guy in the bed next to me. I said, "It's the craziest thing. I don't know if it happened but I'm laying there, and chaplain's asking me if I want to be forgiven for my sins, and the guy goes, 'Oh my God, he gave you the lost rights.'"
Mm-hmm.
And I went, "What?" But yeah, I was extremely lucky that they got me right. That one of our medics was probably where that camera
Mm-hmm.
is from me. When I got hit, and I
Mm-hmm.
hollered medic, and he was able to stop the bleeding before it.
Right, before you bled out, yeah. Now, did that end your combat career, or?
Yes.
Okay. How long did you stay in hospital?
I spent 10 days in Saigon.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was flown to the 106 General Hospital, Yokohama,
Mm-hmm.
and I was there for 5-6 months. Then I went to Island Army Hospital in Knox,
Mm-hmm.
where I was in the hospital holding company till I doing doctors and a lot of work on PT and that
Mm-hmm.
on my leg to strengthen it
Right.
until I got discharged.
All right. Now, what did you do then once you got discharged?
Partied for 3 days, came home thinking I was going to have a few weeks to, and I got home about 2 o'clock on a Monday morning, and I unlocked the door because my parents naturally were sleeping. And I get there, and there's a note on the table: get up by 9. Your dad's got set up for you to have a job interview at General Motors where he worked. And I went, oh, okay, they're not going to hire me right away, you know. I'll still get a couple of weeks to unwind and go there, and, oh, you're Charlie's boy. You got wounded in Vietnam? I went, yeah. They had their own doctor. They had their own X-rays, everything. Doctor says, can I see that? And I says, well, I didn't bring it. I didn't think I needed to. He says, well, go home, get it, and come right back. So I did, and I came back, and he did X-ray to make sure that nothing that would happen there that they'd be liable for, you know. And that, and says, go back to personnel now. And I did, and they said, wait till the doctor calls. And the doctor called, and they said, okay, be here at 2:30. You start working at 3. Which was good for money, but it's like out of the service one day and in working 3 days later.
How long did you stay with that?
6 years.
Okay.
I did not. My dad loved factories. I did. And then I was a mess. Psychologically and very honestly, I was a mess. You know, I had a marriage, and that went south between the two of us. And I quit one day, just quit General Motors, and I went to the VA hospital for down in Kalamazoo. I was there 5 weeks. Of course, they didn't know PST then.
PTSD, yeah.
Yeah, because this was 71. And of course, everything had to be your early childhood.
Yeah.
Which didn't do me any good because that wasn't where
the problem was. Yeah.
But so I lived on the streets for a year and a half.
What got you out of it?
I finally was able to get another job. You know, and I was able to get money to get my own. Well, I had a friend, and he had an apartment. He says, you know, you can live with me. We got 2 bedrooms, but it was a small place, but it was a place. And then I got a job working at another factory, but I held on to that one for a long time. But so we moved into a better apartment, and life slowly changed. And you know, I still have PSD. I go to a group meeting down in Kalamazoo every Wednesday. And then they have a smaller group on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month I go down to. But no.
When you would come back, and you're back in civilian life, were you still paying attention to the news, and were you aware of both the progress of the war and the anti-war activities and things? Did you pay much attention to that? Okay. You need to pause here while you get the squeezing. We're most of the way done.
Yeah.
One of the risks of this particular operation, your batteries can go. Now, before I had Mike sitting in there taking the bases off, they'd set us up and they'd take pictures of us. We could go on. I have a couple interviews where you can't hear me, at least for certain times. So I'll be now, you've done this well. You've done this well, and you kind of put a good deal of material and kind of see where your experience is. I gather you're not a guy who likes to talk a lot about himself? Yeah. I really appreciate you doing it. I tell you, that on the other end of it, college kids, they want to know about this stuff. They're interested in high school, whatever. You don't get a lot of it in most of your classes. These days, Vietnam at least makes it into high school.
It died right after he talked about birthday point or...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it did pick up the question. You're ready?
Good to know, right at the end.
Yep.
There you go.
All right, they're still rolling. Okay. So we talked about, I was asking about how much were you aware of what was going on, either with the war or the anti-war movement there after you got back?
A lot. You couldn't help it. It was everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
What kind of view did you have of the people who were in the protest movements and stuff like that?
Not good. See, everybody's got an opinion, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Just like your eyes, our mouth, everybody's got one. But there were some that really believed it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the majority were just didn't want to go fight.
Mm-hmm.
See, this was the first war where people saw.
Yeah.
You know, they saw dead bodies. They saw people dying. They saw the ruins that happened in war.
Yeah. And the government hadn't necessarily done that good a job of justifying or explaining to people
Johnson
why.
was bad. Johnson bragged about how we couldn't fire a bullet unless he gave approval.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you fight a war like that? You know?
Did you ever encounter that kind of issue, or were you mostly fighting in places where you could shoot when you had to?
The only time you could really shoot when you had to is when you're doing it after they've opened on you,
Mm-hmm.
which is not a good way to fight a war.
Mm-hmm.
But Johnson was, and I voted all different ways in presidential elections,
Mm-hmm.
but I voted for Johnson, and then I said, well, that didn't work, so I voted for Nixon, and really wasn't much change. You know, but I had a hard time because, you know, I'd see these fights and I'd see the Americans being hit, and you'd see them being pulled out, and you knew they were dead.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard.
Right.
It was to the point I didn't watch TV much.
Mm-hmm. Now, to look back over the full range of the time that you spent in the service, do you think you took anything positive out of that? Or
I took a lot of positive.
What did you gain from it, do you think?
Working with all kinds of different people, great friendships
Mm-hmm.
that I still have today. That we just came back last week from going down and seeing my buddy that was mortar platoon sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
We became really good friends after Vietnam, and he passed away with Lou Gehrig's last year, disease. And we went down to see, it was going to be the anniversary of his death, so Kathy and I and my buddy Dwayne that was over in Vietnam with us and his wife Mary Ellen, we went down to, they live in Tennessee, we went down to see Dave's wife, and then we spent a couple days at their place and that. Go to the reunion every year. Got it. That group that I'm with, the Vietnam PSD group, like every one of those guys. So in the I just feel sad that nothing came out of that. These people getting hurt, dying, you know, nothing.
Yeah. How do you, what do you think about the way sort of people in American society today are sort of treating veterans, especially the ones coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan?
Very honestly, I'm happy they do it for them. I do it, but I feel like we were the guinea pigs on, and we're the only veterans that didn't come back to hear a welcome. You know, I actually probably envy would be the word I'd use for. You know, it just, you can't change what's happened. You can't change the past, but yeah, you know, I just feel that wrong generation, I guess. You know?
Yeah. Well, makes for a pretty powerful story, and I guess I'd like to close here by just thanking you for taking the time and sharing it with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.